Hi, I hope you've been getting on well with the last lesson for Cant Explain from the Grade 1 Trinity book. As promised, I thought I'd do the next part of it. If you remember before, we were working on the chord sequence D, C, G, D, getting the changes between them, remembering on beats 2 and 4 there's that break of a beat. So you got, obviously you got so I hope you've been working on that, and as I said to you, it suddenly on the second time bar goes to A to D, and that can catch you out. I was going to explain a little bit more about first and second time bars. Now if you look on bar 5, 6, 7, 8, you've got almost looks like a bracket across the top saying 1, and then a set of notes, and then a repeat bar, which is the double lines and the dot. Now what that means is that's a repeat ending, so like it's what we call a closed repeat. So what it means is that fires you all the way back to bar 5, where you got the other 2 lines of the dots that are pointing in. So it's almost like, think of it like a magnet. You're firing it, you bounce all the way, you hit the other one, and then it pulls it back, or like a ball throwing against the wall, depending on how you're looking at it. So it means you're playing 5, and you go all the way to bar 9, which is 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then it goes to the, which is under the GD, and then it fires you back. Now on the repeat, this is really important. You don't play the one with the bracket 1 again. You actually stop on bar 8, which is the D and the double C, and then you jump to the one that says 2 and the bracket, and then you play the A, D. So that passage would be D, C, A, D. Just again a bit slower. So you've got D, C, A, D. Now remember with your A, as we did before, first finger on the second fret on the D, second finger on the second fret on the G, and third finger on the second fret on the B. And as before, remember the low E is not played, we're playing it from the A string downwards. Just on a recap, we've got E, A, D, G, B, E. Going from the top of the guitar, the thickest string, E, A, D, G, B, E. Okay, so it basically does that once, and then we come to the bridge. Now the bridge is pretty much the same as it was before, D, C, G, D, C, G, and that's the same pretty much from bar 13 up to bar 18. Now if you look on page 19, or page 2 of I Can't Explain, you notice that there's a couple of bars that look completely different. Obviously you'll recognise the D with the dot, with the staccato. If you remember, dot above the note, not by the side, on the top, means shortens the staccato. So it's, so your hands basically, if you notice, my right hand is just chopping off those strings, and it just makes life a little bit easier. Now the timing, as you can see, you've got a weird, like what you call it, like a little weird 7 in a way. And what that is a quaver rest. Now you will have seen them in music before, and if you remember, a quaver is half a beat rest. That's half a beat, so that's half of a crotchet. So that beat on that thing would be 2, because obviously the first one is a crotchet, which is beat 1. So that is a thing about one hand. So then the next one is 2. So then 2, you just hold it in your mind. Now you probably not looked at it with the C and the A, because the next one is the C. So if you remember with the C, if you're looking then your first finger on the B string on the first fret, then you miss a string, so you play an open G, and then you've got the second fret on the D with your second finger, and then the third on the third fret on your A. Now obviously that's your C, and so you don't play E. And then we go back to the A, which I showed you previously. Now the funky thing about this is the timing. Those little, you'll see lots of little little lines looking like happy and sad faces, I suppose is the best way to to think of it, but obviously not anything to do with most. They're called ties. Now their ties are like slurs, but they're slightly different. Slur is to a different note, so if you saw a slur you would hammer on and hammer off. You wouldn't pick the note, because like obviously if you know with someone, for example, someone's drunk, they slur the words, so you don't pick the note. It wouldn't be, it'd be, can you hear the difference? That's a slur. When we're not dealing with slurs, we're dealing with ties. Now what ties do, no, not the ones that go around your neck, it ties one rhythm to another, and it could be any length of rhythm. For an example, but for this one we're tying a quaver to a crotchet. So if you think about a crotchet's worth 1 and a quaver's worth half. Now when you put them together, very basic maths, it's 1.5 beats. Now as I reminded a couple of my students the other day, we are not in decimal. Music is pre-decimal. In fact, it's pre a lot of things, because it's quite old, a lot older than me. I know you're thinking it. So that is basically we're putting it's 1.5. So we're dealing with fractions, not decimalisation. So it's not 0.5. It's basically half. So 1.5. Now the weird trick, a lot of it throws a lot of people, is you are playing on the and a 2, because you're not playing the second beat, and that's only half a beat long. So the other, if you remember when you're counting quavers, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, you obviously with that quaver rest you are not, for this example, not playing beat 2. So you're playing the and then you are doing the 3. Now if you want to, you could always sort of say 2 and 3 and, if you want to do that way, or 2 and 3 if you feel a little bit more comfortable with the timing. Now it's all to do with, I tend to find that it's easier for a lot of students if you're counting in the same suit, so keep counting in quavers. So what the first bit would be 1 and 2 and 3 and. So the course, there's that, you've noticed I've stopped on the 3 and. Now the next one on, when it goes to the A, is on beat 4, but it's also then tied to a set of notes that have no stems, and they're called semibreves. Now semibreves, you will remember that it is 4 beats long, and you can tell that because there's nothing else in the bar, there's no other rests or anything, so you need to remember that that's 4 beats. Now very basic maths again, don't worry if you struggle. 4 plus 1 is, that's right, 5. So now obviously we are not going to be counting 5, because obviously when we get to the end of the bar we start at 1 again, because that's the next bar. Because every bar your timing starts again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, etc. So you just have to remember that. So you would go 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. I'll do that again, not a lot slower. 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 4 and. Obviously slower it takes a lot longer, so you know it doesn't have quite the impact. So what we have to remember now is putting it together. So that's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And I'll do that again. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So it's kind of got that, it's like a weird sort of like push. Now you tend to get tied notes when the notes are not on the beat. That is the usual thing. It's very rare to get them on the beat. So it's more, you tend to get them when the notes are pushed across and you need to hold them for a weird amount of time. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Right, I hope you got your head around that. It sounds, because obviously when we're looking at the chorus, we got a lot of like similar tied notes, which kind of sort of wraps up for the next bit. Now we are now into what we call 2-note power chords. Now on the guitar, power chord is basically you got the octave, which is this is D5, so your 3rd string, and then your 2nd finger, which is on the G, which is the 2nd fret, which is an A. So we've got a D and A, which makes a D5. D5 is basically you've got the tonic and the dominant. Okay, so now what we are doing with this is we're dealing with, yet again, the good old dotted note. Now not the one above, the dot next to it. Now if you remember in other songs that we have done, and I'm sure you've done this in, you've seen it on the internet or you've done it at school, a dot next to the note extends the note. So if you have a crotchet and you put a dot next to it, it adds half itself. So basically it's 1.5 beats. Now I'm sorry if this is getting super complicated for you. I can understand. It's a case of you're just going to have to get your head around things slowly. Remember, this is a video, so you can pause, rewind. And if you get confused, just send me a message. So you've got 1 and 2. Now, did you see what I did there? You've got the crotchet, which is the 1 and then the next beat has got to be, for that half a beat, is 2. So 1 and 2. Then the next note on, you've got a quaver to a crotchet. Yeah, that's right. You remember from before, the note before, it's 1.5 beats again. But because we're playing on the and of 2, so we're playing the and of 2, then it's 3 and 4. So it's kind of like that one that you did with C. So you've got 1 and 2 and 3 and then we got the rest on the 4 this time, instead of having that extra note. So you got 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Now you see how I stopped at the 4? I'll do that again. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Good. Now we are basically now moving up from that D5 power chord to a almost like a mini bar power chord. That is 2nd fret on your A and 4th fret on your D. Now you are not playing any other strings apart from those 2 ones together. So those 2 strings. But yeah, so that is called a B5 power chord. Same as with the D5, you've got the tonic and the dominant, or the 1st and the 5th, if you can't get your head round the tonics, etc. That's a lot to get your head round. Now if you look ahead, there is another 2 notes. We've got the G and the A. Exactly the same rhythm as the D5 and the B5. So if you remember with the G and the A, these are a lot the same rhythm. So you're going 1, 2 and 3, 4. and then the same with the A. 1, 2 and 3, 4. Now don't put a mute in between the string because you're just hitting it and hitting it. So 1, 2 and 3, 4. Not 1, 2 and 3, because that is putting a little quaver rest in there. So going 1, 2, 1, 2 and 3, 4. So you've got 1, 2 and 3, 4. 1, 2 and 3, 4. So you see that there's no mute between. You're not muting between the chords. You're just strumming them and then strumming them again. So that chorus, those 4 chorus bits, which is just the 4 bars on 21, 22, 23 and 24, we got, so you've got going from the D5, so 1, 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2 and 3, 4. Now I do that a lot slower because I know that's quite quick, so we've got 1, 2 and 3, 4. And then back to the B, 1, 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2 and 3, 4. Well done. That's a lot of information to take in. Hold on in there, keep rocking, and I'll see you soon.